Earlier this week, we told you about significant proposals that would not only shrink the military, but change the military. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel, he would cut spending and outdated hardware and shrink the Army to pre-World War II levels. And that debate, it will be a lengthy one in Washington. And it comes amid a series of dicey international threats and trouble spots, like, for example, what we're seeing play out in front of us in Ukraine, where the president has fled seeking Russian protection as Russian troops mount on the border in what so far are just quote-unquote exercises. And of course, North Korea can always trust that interesting spot in the world here. The rogue nuclear power launched 4 short-range missiles as a test this morning, reigniting worries about their intentions and capabilities in an increasingly tense area of the world. And lingering worries, of course, continue in places like Syria, where despite the start of peace talks that aren't going well, violence continues unabated on a huge scale. And it all begs the question, what would be, or will be, if you believe what we're hearing in Washington, the impact be of reducing our military capabilities on our ability to influence what happens in hotspots like these? And Congressman, I'll start with you in that, for the folks who say, enough already, you know, I mean, how much more do we have to give to be the policeman of the world? Forgetting what our role should or shouldn't be, tell them why we should care what happens in the Ukraine.
Well, first off, we will continue to be somewhat the policemen of the world. We're the only superpower, and we'll have obligations. And if we allow the void to be there, we'll pay a big penalty. The issue is, do we need so many tanks? Do we need planes with pilots? Candidly. And those are tough things for the military to want to deal with, but we better deal with it. So, you know, our role is going to be the same.
Use the Ukraine as an example. Tell the public why we should care what happens there.
Well, we do care, but just as we cared what happened in Poland, we didn't go in with troops. It's right in the sphere of now Russia, not the Soviet Union. So I don't want us to beat our chest too much and say, you better not do this, because we're not going to be able to back it up. We will not send troops to the Ukraine. But my view as I look at it is, there is a real proof that civil disobedience is winning out over military in so many places in the world.
But just the argument will be among many, including the modernization of the military, is we are going to reallocate forces from Europe and put them more towards the Pacific Rim. At least that's what, in part, we heard from the Defense Secretary. Does that messaging in any way embolden what's happening in Eastern Europe or Russia moving troops along? They know we're not going to have a ground war with them.
Can I tell you what emboldens the Russia? When the President of the United States knows that he should have reacted quickly in a decisive attack on maybe helicopters in Syria and so on, and didn't do it.
Or telegraphed it,
and then says, you know, I don't want to be in Afghanistan. We want to get our troops out. The problem is, if our adversaries think we won't use force, they will be emboldened, and then we ultimately have to use force. A case in point, Saddam never would have gone in Kuwait if we hadn't given him, unfortunately, through our ambassador, that, you know, if he did it, maybe, you know, it would be all right. That was basically the message. Well, it was obviously not all right, and we had to go in. Had he thought we would have done what we ultimately did, he never would have gone in the first place.
But if we look at recent trends, Libya and other issues that have popped up, it seems like the two ways that we make progress against a rogue element these days are economic force, right, with sanctions and things like that, and international cooperation. NATO in Libya, it'd probably be NATO in Ukraine if there has to be action in that regard. I'm not sure. Do we really need?
Do you really think NATO at this point is considered?
It's not just going to be us unilaterally. We're not going to do that again for a long, long time. But I wonder, if we reduce our stockpiles, if we reduce our forces, does that really impact the playing field that much, given that we still have those other tools of leverage that we've exercised so much recently?
Well, we're not giving up our cruise missiles. We're not going to give up the things that we need.
Now, how many carriers, though, do we need, you think?
Well, if you want to have the rotation, you know, I think we have 11.
Isn't it down to like 8 now?
Well, maybe it is.
Yeah,
I
think it is.
9.
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah.
9? Okay.
They want to bring it down to 9.
They want to bring it down tonight from 11.
So you're right.
Yeah.
So, you know, that is a very strong impression of power, and you want that. But if you have a carrier, you need other things with it. So, The bottom line is we need an honest debate about what we need, and what my fear is going to be is it's going to be the headline. Oh, we're downsizing. We're going to potentially we need our forces here and there. No, let's have a debate. Let's have a 2-year debate about all the things. I'll make this last point. When I rejoiced at our accomplishments in getting Saddam out of Kuwait, and I thought, good deal. I had a member of Congress come up and say, "You haven't been in office 10 years. You had no role in this," because he said the decisions you make now are 10 years from now going to have impact.
Was he right?
So whatever we do now isn't going to have an impact in the next few years.
And was he right?
Oh, he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
No.
Or again, 12 years later.
Yeah.
No, it's what we do now with the military is not impacting us today or tomorrow or the next day. It's going to impact us out.
We're just so tired of war and conflict that doesn't seem to either have a period to it when it ends and also a payoff to it. It's just...
That's a good point.
But because of that fatigue, there is an element which is whether we like it or not, and there's another debate. You say, of course we do, we have to fill the void. There's a lot of people who say we shouldn't be the superpower anymore, and I'm petrified.
Well, then who will be?
Exactly, and I'm petrified of the consequence of that.
But we're still going to be spending more than the next 9 countries in the world on defense when you add them all up. That includes China.
The U.S. is 40% of the world's military.
That true?
40%.
Look what happened when we were in Afghanistan and Iraq. Look how many times we had to stretch rotations just to keep troops on the ground, and we all acknowledge we didn't even have enough at that point to really be able to do the job. We saw the limits of our power, that we couldn't fight 2 fronts at the same time for an extended period of time without really stretching to the breaking point our military.
Well,
and that was in Afghanistan and Iraq.
I would argue that's also about making the right choices with
Right.
what we do with our military. I mean, I don't think many people think we should have been in both Iraq and Afghanistan at the same time. Iraq certainly is the one that gets a lot of questions because people feel like it deterred us from, or diverted us from what we should have been focusing on in Afghanistan. So I think we have to be smarter about it. I think the congressman hit on something essential too, which is drones and long-range missiles are really the future of what we're doing with our military. We can go to war against an enemy without putting our people at risk. So that's the investment we need to be making. It's just how we use them.
Though, they don't agree with that completely. They say you can do it to a degree, but at the end, you can't fight everything remotely.
If you're a pilot, you don't want to be in a room, you want to be on a plane. I mean, you know. But, you know, I've been in a room where you're seeing these, 19-year-olds flying these drones, and you know, drones are going to be a lot different. They're going to be able to do things that our manned aircraft can't even do.
Including deliver the packages to your front door. But question is, you see the international landscape, and I know you served a role here in Congress on that front. What areas concern you most that you really wonder where it's going to be a year, 2 years, 5 years from now?
I'm going to say less an area, and where my big concern is that a president will give a message and then not live up to it, and then his word means nothing. And you want your military to, you want people to fear that you will use it and never use it. And that's your goal. But you don't want to say you don't want to use it. Yep. You don't want to say you're weary of war. You want to say, we will do whatever we have to do. And that's your message overseas.
It's funny, they always say it, but it's actually true. People will read weakness, especially in some other parts of the world. Okay. Now, when we come back, I'm very curious what the Congress is going to say on this one and the table as well. Celebrities testifying in front of Congress. We saw 2 examples this just yesterday where I thought one was definitely on target and informer, the other one a little cringeworthy. When we come back, we'll find out what the perspective of the people that are sitting there with the nameplates in front of them and what we as the general public think of it as well. Stay with us.